here, and then we will get going. All right, I think we live on Facebook and Instagram. Let me just get everything kind of operating here. All right. What's up, Ritual Spirit? All right, we're just going to get things up and running. Going to give everybody just a couple of minutes or so to come in the room. And then we'll get going. We'll discuss a few things here. It's down for about an hour and a half or so, maybe an hour and a half. This all depends. Don't want to really go past an hour and a half because I got shit to do. I'm sure like everybody else. All right. Let me see the Instagram up and running. All right. So infernal blessings to everybody over there on the Instagram. When we do get to any question portion, if you are in the Instagram and you want to come over to the Facebook, because it becomes a little too much to try to go back and forth. But we'll see how that goes. All right. While we are waiting, I guess I'll go through some quick announcements like I usually do. First and foremost, upcoming, hold on one sec. Okay. Oh yeah, just some quick announcements, upcoming events. I know people have asked, getting emails about the event in October. As of right now, everything's still planned. It would have to take something real drastic for that to be canceled. By then, we should be in a better place than we are now with what's going on as far as travel and things of that nature. So until further circumstances dictate something else, as of now, we are still planning our October event. If something changes, we'll let people know. So if you are interested in attending that event, the Journey of the Black Adept Conference number 3, which is scheduled for October 30th to November 1st. You can send me an email and I will email you the information on the event, kind of the general outline of the itinerary. It is a 3-day event of classes, workshops, presentations. There is a ritual each day that we do as a group, as we've done the last 2 years. If you are interested in doing a presentation at that event, when you contact me or reach out to me in that email, let me know you are interested, that you're attending. Obviously, you would have to attend, and you are interested in doing a presentation at that event. Just need to run by me what it is you want to do a presentation on. Obviously, it has to be in line with the occult or the left-hand path or something connected to it that's beneficial to what we do on this path. Now, we have about 10 spots. Those were taken pretty quickly. I know it's still early. Usually those start filling up about 2 months prior to the event. So, you can contact me as early as now or later down the road and just let me know what it is you want to do. Also, for people that are on or are members of the Primordial Chaos Patreon page, if you are not physically attending, you will have access and you will be able, if you are a tier 3 member, tier 3 or 4, you will be able to view the presentations. I will make that access. Just the presentations only, you'll be able to see those. I will be putting them on the Patreon page when that event comes in October. All right. So that's still on for those that are contacting me. And regardless to that, I'm going to put that out publicly here. I will put the email, my contact email. And again, this information is in the it's in the description box of all the videos. But again, for the special people, we'll put it in. I'm going to put in the contact email and the Patreon page. And I do encourage you to check out the Patreon page, which is just exclusive content for members only, rituals, classes. I've also added a 4th tier where you can have access to a 30-minute spiritual reading or consultation once a month. That is included in your tier 4 membership. Obviously, you just need to request it. We need to make an appointment. So you can do that once a month. So it gives you a good opportunity to, stay connected on that level. All right. So that's the event in October. We do have the Hecate class, which is open to everybody. That's coming up on, I believe it's the 9th of May. The information's on Instagram. It's on the Facebook page. Remember, we're on Instagram at Primordial Chaos 9. We are on Facebook, Primordial Chaos. All the information I'm telling you is posted on all these platforms. So the best way to stay up on all this stuff is just stay up on the Instagram, and it'll pretty much keep you abreast. So that class coming up on the 9th. For the Patreon members, we have actually next Saturday. I know we have the next 2 events, which is the Ritual of the Holy Death, Rosary, which it's a black magic ritual. I'll kind of be going through aspects of how to perform that, different ways you can do it. That'll be on the Patreon page. 2 events on the 8th, and I believe the other one's the 16th. Don't quote me on that. It could be off on that date. But again, the information's on the Instagram. And we also have the Sekhmet Lady of the Flame class. That's only for Patreon members who are members on the Patreon page. The Hecate class, you can sign up for that by you can send your payment by PayPal, just using this email address that I put in the description box. It's $55. It is a 3.5-hour class. It is on a Saturday from 3 to 6:30 p.m. Once you send your payment, include in the notes your email so you can receive the link to get into the room for the class, and also your name, so we can identify you, who you are when you enter the room. So anybody is free. The Hecate class, we will be dealing with dark sorcery, black magic, witchcraft. We'll be using her archetype and her energy and how it's connected to that. I'll be going through different methodologies and techniques. And again, when I do these classes, these are suggestions. Feel free to take the information, which you should do, and it should just be a blueprint or a guideline to kind of motivate and spark you to create your own areas of work that suit your needs. Very important. But I'll go in detail on different aspects of that. Okay, so that's coming up on the 9th. And again, as I said, now been busy because just like I'm sure a majority of you, I'm on home confinement work scheduled to go back my company on the 5th of May. I don't see that happening. But anyway, I'm quicker to get to for the moment until things kind of get back to normal. For a spiritual consultation or a reading, if you are interested in getting one, I can pretty much get to you within 24 hours for the most part, just depending on what I got going on that day. So you can shoot me an email. Let me know the days and times you're available in the time zone that you live in. Okay, and I'll send you the information, and we can make an appointment in a time frame that works out for both of us. I think I covered majority of it. That's pretty much what we got going on. Covered the classes. Again, I encourage you to check out the Patreon page. I did put the address there in the box, patreon.com/Baniti, Baniti. There's 4 different levels of membership on there. It starts from $5 on up. I'd recommend the minimum you do is 2, 3, and 4 is probably gives you access to everything on the channel. And again, there's rituals on there, which we've done. And we got another one upcoming in a couple of weeks. It's just exclusive private content for members only. Check that out when you get some free time. I've been focusing time and energy on building that up, which has been a good platform to kind of do things a little more private and exclusive. We're obviously here on YouTube. Not a smart thing to do certain things I wouldn't really even think of doing here or discussing, because it's more of an open platform. So check that out when you get some time. I think other than that, we covered all the bases. I hope everybody is staying healthy and safe and being smart. As I said in the beginning of these videos, last thing, don't forget to hit the like buttons. The more likes the videos get, it expands more out on YouTube. It gives access to more people finding it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel too and hit the notification bell, and you'll get a notification every time a new video is uploaded or I do a live like this. Don't really have a set schedule. As I told you guys a couple months ago, I know people still sending emails. It's just hard for me to do that right now. So just the best way to stay abreast is subscribe and keep the notification bell activated so you get a notification. All right, so what I said I want to do briefly in the beginning of all these videos, not to focus on it, not to give it too much energy in a unproductive way. The COVID-19 coronavirus thing. Obviously, it's a reality. We're dealing with it, so we can't pretend like it doesn't exist. So I want to touch on that briefly, and then I'll move into the topic that you see in the description box. I want that to be the focus of the video. But as I said, for the time being in the beginning, I'll just touch momentarily in the beginning on this. Again, hope everybody's staying healthy, safe, smart. I hope they're doing to the best of their ability to keep themselves healthy and safe, and family, friends, loved ones, etc. Which is important. Doing smart things, not going places if you don't have to for the time being, and obviously taking the necessary precautions. Outside of that, I hope people are doing the things we've discussed the last couple of weeks here, doing things to build up their immune system. We've talked about vitamin D, which is very critical, at least a minimum of 1,000 IUs a day, in addition to your C. A probiotic is very important right now because it replenishes the bad bacteria. All the bacteria that's stripped, it replaces it with the good bacteria. And when we're dealing with a lot of these things, and one of the things we have to be conscious of too, and I want to make this clear when I say this, when we're doing all this excess or more washing probably than we've done before, we are also stripping good bacteria from not just from the surface of our skin, but from our body. So we need to make sure we're replacing these good bacteria, and a probiotic helps tremendously with that. So I would suggest, and I mentioned the refrigerated kind, make sure you look for the refrigerated kind. Don't get the dried out kind. The cheap versions you can get in the pharmacies, they don't work as well. Though there's living microorganisms and bacteria in them, they're just not as effective. The bacteria, in order to be productive, the refrigerated kind, by being refrigerated, it keeps the bacteria alive. So vitamin C with bioflavonoids, because the body absorbs it better. Vitamin D, at least a minimum of 1,000 IUs, because that also builds up the immune system tremendously. And a good probiotic to replace the good bacteria that's taken out of our systems. Stress and anxiety, which is probably a tough thing right now in these times, and I'm sure we're all dealing with it to certain levels of degree. Some deal with it better than others, unfortunately. It's important too. Obviously, natural sunshine is a good provider of vitamin D, but just for your stress levels, your oxygen levels, and overall mental well health and being, you should be getting some outdoor exercise, some outdoor sun, and you should be exercising regularly. I've said that many times before. Now, consistent exercise also builds up your immune system. Very important that we understand that. So I always want to touch on these things in the beginning. It also builds up a good resistance to your immune system when you're on a good exercise program. And sleep. You can't negate sleep. Lack of sleep, which I said, we have to factor this in with a lot of our medical practitioners and first responders and people working in the hospitals. They're very susceptible to getting this because a lot of them are doing 24, 48-hour shifts. They ain't sleeping. And that weakens the immune system, okay? So we got to make sure we're getting enough of sleep. It's important. And I understand this can be stressful times. I'm sure there's many people watching this, whether they own their own business or they have a job or whatever, work for some type of company. I'm sure there's a lot of us that have been impacted by this. A lot of us have either lost our jobs or our businesses are closed right now due to what's going on. So, I get it. There's a lot of stress, but this is the time where I've mentioned many times before, you are now challenged. Your fortitude is going to be challenged right now. Your power. When I say your power, I'm not talking about some, spooky mythological power, but your power as a black magician or adept will be, tested right now. How firm are you on your spiritual path? Because this is when most people either abandon it or they run back to something that's comfortable. You'll always see in this country, unfortunately, just like 9/11, where the churches were full shortly after, the masjids and the temples were full, because it's funny how people all of a sudden become religious and holy when something of a cataclysmic nature starts to affect people, and we don't want to do that. But some people will be scared out of this path and go back to doing what they do. As I said before, fear is really the number one disease of ignorance. And there's a lot of ignorance going on right now, unfortunately, in the world due to this COVID-19 stuff. And it's causing people to react in a negative way. And I'm not just talking about the general public. Obviously, in places that are impacted on a much more deeper level, such as New York and the tri-state area, you just got people, feeding into conspiracy theories, and all this shit is wrong. Trust me when I tell you. You got people trying to connect the whole 5G thing. I mean, people just reaching for straws. And what people don't understand about the 5G technology, whether you may or may not know, something they've been developing since the early 2000s, and know the difference of ionized radiation and non-ion, or certain levels of it, like your microwave. Yes, radiation waves can affect you to a degree, but I think when we look into it too hard, I've seen the research and the studies. Can some of the radiation waves and frequencies cause, diseases or cause cancerous cells? There's always that possibility anytime you're working with that technology. So it's just a matter of how you look at it and to the level of the degree you're going to take it. I hear all these theories. I hear all these concepts. I can see certain levels of possibilities there, but there's a lot of flaws in it too. And it's our job when we claim to be individuals who follow this path to self-mastery. It's very important we critically think when we're hearing all this stuff. It's very important we scrutinize, we analyze, we look at things in its totality, and we don't react on pure emotion, which a lot of people do. A lot of people are looking for that way out / conspiracy theory so they can make themselves feel comfortable. And as I've said many times before, regardless of your perspective on this, regardless, I don't even waste time no more, regardless of where you think it came from, whether it was genetically created, man-made, where it started. See, that's the distraction and the bullshit that people are focusing on, when we should be focusing on solutions moving forward and how to deal with it. Because I'm hearing the most bizarre shit. Oh, this is all an illusion. It's all a hoax. It's a stage. Well, this is a pretty grand hoax when they're literally driving up refrigerated trucks and loading them into the back of them with forklifts. Then I'm hearing, here's a new conspiracy theory. Oh, this is a conspiracy because they need body parts and organs. I mean, this shit sounds good. It's easy to get sucked into that because you can create scenarios to convince yourself, okay? But when I ask and pose questions like, okay, so where are they storing all these body organs? Where are they exactly going to? And what's the process, and where are they going from the truck? And from the truck, how would they be able to discreetly, pull this off? Everything we're saying on the news and in the hospital, those all actors in the hospital, for those that think it's a hoax. And for those who probably know people who it's impacting directly, I'm sure they have a difference of opinion. Again, it sounds good, but the approach is all wrong. I don't hear anybody talking about solutions, regardless of what you think it is. If you're in an area where social distances and stay at home is suggested and things are closed down, you're affected by it too. So my question is, what are we doing at the present moment to move forward and work our way through it? Because it will pass like everything else. You're going to have to give this a few months. Nobody has any logical explanations or answers. Everybody wants to talk about conspiracies and the problem. That's the problem in these conscious platforms and conscious groups and communities. We got a bunch of people that sit around talking about the problem and they don't have any solutions. And the solution is simple right now. Solution is do things to take care of your immune system. take your basic necessary precautions, stay in your regular routine. You should be on your spiritual work harder now than ever. Whatever it is you do, keep doing it. It's important for your mental health and well-being, because that's the thing we need to focus on. Some people, we're talking about the direct impact of a serious virus, but nobody's just not focusing enough on mental health and well-being. Some people ain't going to be able to deal with this certain level of confinement. I don't look at it like that, because the only routine it's changed is my business operation and, you know, some of the places I like to go. But for the most part, most of what I do is here in my domain, my ritual chamber, my home. And I'm busy just reading, studying, doing research, doing rituals, spending time with the kids, and then exercising. Okay. So if you don't know it's funny how there's people who were complaining at one point that didn't have time to do everything. Now they got too much time. They don't know what the fuck to do with themselves. That's what that shows me, is an individual who is lacking inner harmony. They just do not have a good flow of inner harmony. Okay. And if that's you, if you're that person who, when, you know, before this happened, you were so busy, because you know how many times I've heard this, oh, I don't have time to do this, I can't do that, or I can never get anything done, or I can't do my ritual work, I don't get no results because I've heard all this shit. Now I'm hearing people bitch, whine, and complain, oh my God, I don't know what to do with myself. Man, I'm getting bored. Oh, how many movies can you watch? Exactly. So you're not utilizing, that's why I've been posting stuff in the last couple of weeks. This is the time to make order out of your chaos. This is the time to take this extra time you have, rather than sit around. And because if you're just sitting around, don't know what to do with yourself and how to pass time, then it shows you're a victim of fear, of insecurity. Yet you have no plan. So this is the shit that I'm talking about. I'm not interested in all the conspiracy theories. That's what those type of people do. It's interesting to entertain if you're in the mood. It's interesting to look into them. And again, there's possibilities in some of them, but there's a lot of flaws. But we have to ask ourselves the questions as people who claim to be on the path of self-mastery, people who claim to be black adepts or black magicians or practicing magicians, sorcerers, whatever the fuck you want to call it, whatever title makes you feel good and floats your boat. We're supposed to first make sure self is in order and everything in our environment that connects to us is in order. That's our immediate family, friends, our surroundings, because we always are in control and we are always the master over that. Nobody can interfere with that unless we allow them. I don't care what's going on in the outside world. Okay? Yes, there's things that impact us to a certain degree. And I'm not saying what's going on doesn't impact us to a certain degree, but when we allow fear and anxiety to set in, we give it more power than we're supposed to. Okay? So this is the approach. These are the things that we need to be doing. We need to be smart. Okay? And what we can do as people on this path of self-mastery, we can give people the right information to help remove some of those anxieties and those fears and not pump up all the conspiracy theories and all the bullshit that's going on out there. All right. So want to make sure we're in that frame of mind. All right. Which is going to segue into the title. All right. So again, frontal blessings to everybody on Instagram. Again, if you have any questions, well, I can kind of Dopes 13. I appreciate that. Yeah. Everything. Everybody's good here. Good health, good spirits. Appreciate it. I'll try to keep an eye on that. But if you do have some questions and I missed you when we get to that point, you can come over to the YouTube. So we are live on YouTube and we are live on Instagram simultaneously. All right. So which takes me to the topic of the video. All right. We are dealing with the beasts of the abyss and the underworld. Right. What does this represent to us on this path? It represents a lot. Okay. When we talk about now, when you hear that word, first we got to get out of our mind what the standardized, indoctrinated, mentally controlled person, they'll hear the word beasts and their mind will go all negative. Their mind will go all space cadet. I'm not talking about us who are on this path. When we always struggle with our beast-like nature, right? The raw aggression and the raw power and the passion when we reach deep down inside, and our godlike nature, right? They're connected, but we need to understand how they function. They're a little bit different. Now, as opposed to a lot of other ideologies and philosophies, when you would hear a term like that, they would say stupid shit like, oh, that's evil, or that's negative, or that's this, or that's that. We need some of that connection to our raw beast-like nature, because most paths teach you to suppress it, as if do not connect with any aspect of it because it can be destructive, it can destroy you. Meditate it away, discipline yourself, don't be in the world, don't get caught up in worldly ways and all. That's all philosophical nonsense and bullshit, and it's not practical. Our beast-like nature is connected to our God-like nature when it's working in harmony. Now, when you succumb completely to your beast-like nature, and there are points where all of us in our life lose control. What do I mean by that? When you are dealing with certain areas where you're giving completely into your lusts and your desires, right? So the way to approach that is appease your lusts and your desires, but don't be controlled by them. That's when the beast-like nature can be out of control. I've talked about this many other times before. That could also be not being able to control your temper and your anger, but at the same token, your anger is a productive thing when that energy is channeled in the correct way, not in a way where you don't have no control over what you're doing, because then anger can become self-destructive. Okay, but your beast-like nature is what fuels the passion when you're trying to get things done, and the beast-like nature ties into chaos. Now, the beasts of the underworld and the abyss are representative of a lot of the draconian gods and goddesses, or the gods and goddesses of the void and the abyss that we talk about all the time, right? It connects to and it ties in to what we call the dragon or the serpent energy, right? Which has its connection also with the archetype Lucifer, right? Some of the beasts of the abyss and the underworld would include archetypes like Samael, Melek Tahus, or some refer to as Adramelech, Astereth, Baal. These are some of the beasts or the archetypes that open the lower gates on the Klipothic. And when you're doing your work, you understand what that signifies and represents. Really, it's constructed and broken down. Pull something up here real quick. I talked about I think I did it was the beginning of the week. I can't remember. I think it was Monday. Hold on, I want to pull something up. Hold on. All right, I was talking about the 12 occult nerves or the cranial nerves. And I want you guys to understand this because this is important. I was talking about, some people had emailed me about this. Close the door. All right, I was talking about this. When we're talking about these archetypes or the beasts of the underworld, and I was mentioning on Monday, I was talking about the archdemons. I was talking about the 12 princes of hell and the 72 lords of darkness, who most know as the Goetia, right? But I was mentioning that, and I want to touch back on this because there's a connection to this. I was mentioning in there how the archdemons are symbolic of the higher self, right? These are the higher aspects that connect you to your personal daemon, your agathodaemon, whatever terminology you use. Your 12 princes of hell represent those 12 occult nerves. And the 72, hold on one second. I'm just trying to pull this thing up on the 12 occult nerves. second. Hold on 1 sec. Just trying to load this. Hold on 1 sec. Oh, got it. Okay. Shit. All right, give me 1 sec. All right, here we go. Just trying to pull something up here on the phone that I had. All right. All right. So, I'm sorry about that. As I was explaining, the archdemons deal with the higher self, which are the higher aspects or different aspects that connect you to your personal daemon. And as I said before, they're not controlled by any specific astrological sign. Whereas the 12 princes of hell, they are the bridge, they are the gap between the higher and the lower self. They are representative or symbolic of these 12 princes of hell. And then you have the lower self, which are all the other functions of your aspects of your lower self, which connect you more to the materialistic plane and how you connect with these spirits and demons. Now, why I wanted to focus on the 12 occult nerves, because somebody had sent the email and wanted a little more explanation on that. So I want to read that for a second. Here's why. Okay. And this is out of, it's something that I pulled off of the Health, Brain, and Neuroscience website. Okay. The 12 pairs of they either call the occult or the cranial nerves when you Google. It's the same thing. The 12 pairs of the cranial nerves enable us to perform, pay attention to this, our daily routine in a comfortable and efficient way as they take part of the information of our senses to the brain and the brain to some of our muscles and viscera. Here's a small guide to know a little more about what are the cranial nerves, their anatomy, their classification, and their function. All right. The cranial nerves are 12 pairs of nerves that pass through small holes at the base of the skull. Okay, at the bottom, so which is the bottom. That's why I said it's located in your neck area. So now, factor in, we're dealing with the 72 lords of darkness that are governing everything below. You have the 12 princes of hell, the archdemons, right? So they govern everything that passes through the small holes at the base of the skull. Okay, these nerves are responsible for carrying information and connecting the brain to different parts of the body, sensory organs, motors, muscles, organs, etc. This is why I said it is the bridge and the gap between the lower and the higher self. And if you understand how that ties on the spectrum, it's important we understand these things, because if we say we're working with, whether it's, we use the term the beasts of the abyss and the underworld, the goddesses and gods of darkness through the telepathic realm of the Sitra Akra, the other side, we're talking about higher levels of activating this energy within ourselves via our psyche. So how does this work? Because we need to get the explanation of this. How does this internal process work within? Well, when you're doing these rituals and you're doing these invocations or you're designing spiritual work, you're working with some functioning part of this aspect. But we have some who might focus too much on the lower self. And I've always told people for years, don't get too caught up in that Goetia functioning, because then you're disregarding what I'm talking about now, connecting or using that bridge. And obviously the most important part, activating those higher aspects of the real you, your real self, your personal daemon, right? So let me continue on just so we have an understanding of this, because this is all connected. Hold on. Okay. So it's responsible for the things I just talked about. Our brain is a continuous communication through the spinal cord with almost all of the brain nerves. That is, if, for example, we notice that we are stepping on something soft, that signal is transmuted through our leg nerves until reaching the spinal cord. And from there, taking over until that signal reaches the brain. Okay. I'm going to skip down. In the specific cases of the cranial nerves, what makes them unique and special is that they emerge directly from the brain without passing through the spinal cord. You understand that? That is, they are located in the lower part of the brain and go through the holes at the base of the skull to reach their destination. Interestingly, these nerves are not only directed to areas such as the head, but also extend to other parts such as the neck or the thoracic area, the vagus nerve. Thus, it could be said that the cranial nerves are part of the nervous system. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. To be more specific, they are part of the peripheral nervous system that relates the brain to the cranial and cervical structures in a afferent direction, and sensory, sensorial, motor, and vegetative in a efferent direction. The rest of the afferent and efferent connections between the central nervous system and the body is done through the spinal nerves, right? And then I'm just going to real quick finish off. I'm going to go through the cranial nerves, their basic functions, okay? 1 to 12. These numbers range from 1 to 12, corresponding in each case to the pair in question. The cranial nerves that emerge above the brainstem are pairs 1 and 2. From the midbrains are pair 3 and 4. From the pons, or the variolous bridge, are the cranial nerves 5, 6, 7, and 8. From the medulla oblongata, the cranial pairs 9, 10, 11, and 12. And now their function. I'm going to finish with this. Sensitive function formed by the cranial nerves 1, 2, 6, and 8, associated with ocular mobility and eyelids. Cranial nerve 3, 4, and 6, related to neck and tongue. Muscle activation, cranial nerves 11 and 12, considered mixed function. Cranial pairs 5, 7, 9, and 10. As parasympathetic fibers 3, 7, 9, and 10. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can read because it'll take a while. When you break them all down, the 12 pairs, the olfactory nerve, how they operate, the optic, the oculomotor, the trochlear, the trigemineal, the abducent, facial or intermediate. Long story short, when you get time, not to just go through that and burn a lot of time, you see the importance of how that would bridge. One, it deals with communication, and notice it's right above the throat chakra when we talk about the base of the skull. So expression has a lot to do with this, and how we express ourselves. And the way we express ourselves can cut us off. Or look at it like this. When I say cut off, it's like you have a bridge that connects, that's connected from one mountain, and it's going over a body of water and connecting to another structure. Look at it as if that bridge is wiped out when that is not functioning in its correct capacity. We need to understand the impact of our ritual work and what we're doing, because it impacts, one, all of our internal organs. One, it impacts the 12 cranial nerves that I was talking about there. And then it's going to also have the greatest impact, depending on the work you do and how it's geared towards yourself. It's going to affect how, or lack of how, you're not connecting with your personal daemon or your higher self. So these are the people that might tend to be, that are not connecting or don't have the harmony. They could be so subjective that, these are your space cadets. These are your people that are out there on cloud 9. These are your people that, I talked about this before in the past. Oh, this world, everything's an illusion. This is not real. I control everything, blah, blah, blah. Well, obviously they couldn't control the coronavirus coming. So these are the people that claim, I had a download, I spoke to the ancestors. And these are some of your same people now who are on the internet, they're experts now, and they're now telling you how this virus came about, how it happened, who made it, but yet
the ancestors didn't give them any communication to let them know it was coming in the first place, right? It's very easy to detect bullshit because it stinks when you see it, you smell it, and you pick it apart. So these are your people that, regardless of how they appear on the outside, they're totally disconnected, okay? And then it works on the flip side. You have your other people who have any spiritual connection on any level. They just vibrate on raw emotion. They're really just taking up space. They don't even know their purpose. They chase just earthly things 24/7, which I'm not saying we don't need those things, because we do. But what I'm saying is there's no reciprocating harmony between the objective and the subjective. So we need to understand the work we do impacts us. This is why you'll hear some people say, oh, I do certain work. If I work with certain archetypes, it can literally lead to having some effects from this. I'll hear people say headaches, or they felt sick, or they felt, no, that is very normal. That's because you're activating a certain energy, sometimes that you're not ready to absorb. And you might find in the beginning stages of doing particular work that creates or causes that, but then you might start to see that starts to dissipate as you do it consistently, because your body is now getting used to it. I always tell people on a new path, or they're doing a new form of ritualistic practice or a new spiritual system, get acclimated with the energy first. One, obviously, step one, making yourself familiar with it by reading and studying, but doing simple things in the beginning, such as meditations, visualizations, or simple invocations, to see how the body responds and gets acclimated with a certain energy you're activating. Now, when we're working with the beasts of the abyss and the void, we are activating a very powerful, intense energy. Now, we're active, as I said, when we're dealing with the 12 cranial nerves, the occult nerves, etc., we're activating certain levels of information, okay, which are going to branch out into all areas of our existence. One, it unlocks the power of the subjective. Part of your imagination ties into that, because your imagination and your subjective can open you up to doorways and realms and thought forms that you might even surprise yourself, right? But it also unlocks the essence or things that are connected to yourself that could be impactful or have ongoing existing traumas. So whatever those may be, the purpose of going into the abyss and the void, and the gods and the goddesses that are classified as beasts of the abyss and the void, they are the energies that we want to activate in the psyche, so we can address and work with, become aware, and understand. Now, when you're working with the beast of the abyss and the void, you're first left with the impression, and it's not just the impression, it leaves or stamps an impression. It makes you or shows you, it's the highest form of initiation, because it strips you of everything you think you know. It strips you of all of your things that keep you secure, or as I like to say, your security blankets that you grasp onto. It first makes you see what it's like to have none of that, in order for you, one, to appreciate what you do have, because a lot of people bitch and moan and complain about what they don't have. And two, it makes you reevaluate yourself to see how certain areas in your life where you were vulnerable, where you might finishes it up with, it gives you the know-how how to create and repair that harmony that every one of us are striving for on a daily basis, to get that energy functioning where it needs to be. That's why we do work. That's why we work. Like, some people who are not on this path don't understand, because they look from the outside and they see all these terminologies and they say, oh, why would you want to work with stuff like that? Or why would you want to connect with stuff like that? Well, step one is we got to remove the mainstream indoctrination that's out there about this information. Because people hear the word occult. I'm not talking again about us who consider to be on this path. I'm speaking maybe to somebody who's new, or maybe to somebody who might stumble again across this video later down the road after it uploads by random. I'm talking about maybe the religious indoctrinated person. You can't understand any of this Because step one is when you make the sincere effort to become on this path, you, one, have to be open and be willing to reteach yourself everything you've been taught. We use the term to reprogram, not in a forced way. You're doing the reprogramming. You're going to have to question everything when it comes to your existence, spirituality, the concepts of God, man, the devil, heaven and hell. That religious ideology has to be thrown in the trash first before you can even proceed. Because a lot of people, I mentioned this many times over the years, I still know people to this day who claim to be on the path, but are still struggling with that. It's just an ongoing struggle that some never get past. They're still looking at deity in a religious mindset as some external power outside of them that has control over them. That automatically incites on a subconscious level fear and obedience and being a conformist. Because I don't care what spiritual system or dogma you connect that to. It could be any system of African spirituality. It could be any lower systems of monotheism, be it Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. It's always followed up with, okay, this is the power of this God or this deity. But if you don't follow the rules, the regulations, the laws, or the holy books, or whatever, then there's some severe chastisement or punishment coming for you. Okay, that's why we have to eliminate that mindset first. Why people struggle and connect, whether you're new on the path or been on the path for a while, they can't get out of that way of thinking. They can't remove that type of mindset. They continue to struggle with getting an inner understanding of what this really means. They don't understand their own power and their role in the scheme of things. Okay, it's hard for them to grasp that the God that they've been looking for their entire life, all they had to do was look at their own reflection in the mirror, and they would have found all the answers they were looking for. But again, I get it. It's not always easy because a lot of us were raised in religious upbringings, and we don't blame our parents for that because they were raised that way. So they're doing something that they were taught to do out the gate, right? So it's up to us to break that link or break that chain, as we say. This is how things change and the paradigm shifts. Because if we claim to be people who have the awareness, we break that chain and link when we pass it on to our children or to the youth in general. But step one, it starts with ourselves and our own children. And if we birth new minds like that, then new paradigms start to manifest. The correct paradigms start to manifest. We don't get sucked into all this fear, right? We don't get sucked into all this religious ideology. So the approach has to be that out the gate, and then followed by, obviously, what we talk about a lot, intense personal shadow work, which is getting to know the real you, understanding your strengths, your weaknesses, but more importantly, addressing things, traumas, weaknesses that are impacting you to the point where it's affecting your spiritual growth, whether it's creating psychological blockages or disorders, where it's creating issues on a physical level, whether it's creating issues where it's preventing you from obtaining the results you desire, has a lot to do with the aforementioned. So you must start there. And part of the isolated consciousness that we talk about a lot, okay, deals with that isolation. Isolation from what? From all the things I just mentioned, okay? The separation from that mindset way of thinking. And it can be very lonely in the beginning stages. And we talk about that a lot, right? So when you're working with, just so I don't get too sidetracked, let me back up again. So when you're working with these beasts of the abyss and the void, you're basically talking about going in on a very deep internal level to the inner depths of your subconscious mind, because that's where this energy lies. And not everything there you're going to uncover is going to be pleasant. And the telepathic realm, or working with a lot of these telepathic energies, that's the purpose of doing it. So it's very important we understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, what effect does this have on us? And when I say effect, the work we do, how is it affecting us physically, emotionally, and spiritually? It's very important. Because incorrect work can affect you mentally in a bad way if you don't know what you're doing. You could be accessing certain energy centers that you're not ready to access on a mental level. Therefore, it creates chemical imbalances in the brain. It could create a mental disconnect. It can create stress disorders, anxiety, and a whole bunch of other issues. Physically, it could create certain effects, whether, as I mentioned earlier, people will say, sometimes I do work with a certain thing, blah, 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 I get headaches or I get nauseous. That is a very common thing to get familiar with the energy, right? And more so emotionally, it could trigger more rage or more anger, or it can make you more docile and more complacent, or too docile to the point where you could be susceptible to other things. So it's important we know how, one, it affects us and what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that's why I said you don't gear your work just because you like something. How many times I hear people say, oh man, there's a lot of things I read that interest me, but I got to really read and study and see, is this something I should be doing right now? Is this something that's productive right now? Is this in accordance with what I got going on in my life right now? Don't mean you can't read or study it, because you see this shit all the time. I see a lot of women get fascinated with Kali energy. It trips me the fuck out because they get caught up in what I call the okie dokie. The mother goddess, the goddess this and that, and the sexual aspect of Kali. And they all think that they're Kali. Kali this and blah, blah, blah. Kali that. And then I don't hear anybody ever talk about what Kali really represents on a really deep internal level. Basically, it means uprooting everything in your life and clearing out everything that's blocking any of your spiritual paths. Nobody talks about that like it needs to be. So they go fucking around with Kali and doing rituals because they think they're this supreme goddess and they think they're this sexual diva and every man in the world wants them. It's hilarious. And then they'll come turn around and tell you, yeah, man, start doing some work with Kali. Fuck me up. Turn my life all upside down. I lost my job. My car broke down. It's not working no more. I lost my relationship. Because you forget what the Black Mother Goddess represents first. She represents intense transition and transformational change. Don't bypass that shit. Don't go to her for some physical, financial shit, or for some sexual shit. Because before you might receive that, there might be things that need to be cleared out prior to that. And you might be removing things from yourself that you weren't prepared to be removed. So don't get caught up in the superficial shit. You need to really understand what it is you're doing, why, and what it represents. That will assist you in moving forward to not making critical mistakes, to not fucking around with shit for the moment that may not be conducive to what's going on around you and within you. Mm-hmm. So we want to work with these things if your goal is to master yourself, because every other path teaches you avoid all those things that I just talked about. Meditate them away. Pretend like they don't exist. Sweep them under the rug. The best way to deal with them is block them out. No, because with more resistance comes persistence. Right? And these are the same people that will say you will have to face your personal demons. Well, how do you face your personal demons if you're trying to bury them and sweep them under the rug? So what? Just wait till the resistance becomes so strong to some, then it just explodes and their life becomes a disaster. Because rather than this path, which teaches you to address the chaos when it comes to make order out of it, Those paths teach you to pray it away, meditate it away, call upon the monotheistic God to remove it from your life. And we know that doesn't happen. We know why that doesn't happen is as conscious, living, breathing, intelligent beings, we are shaping the energies around our life by every decision and choice we make on a daily basis. So this is what real karma is. It's that simple. Karma is just cause and effect. So you are creating your karma on a daily basis from the moment you get out of bed, from the moment you decide what you want to eat for breakfast, what you're going to wear today, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. All of these decisions, from the very minute, basic decisions to the more impactful decisions when it comes to spiritual work, doing ritual work, what you're going to study and absorb, what kind of information you're going to take in, to the mundane stuff. All of that is going to determine and affect what type of chaos you create and bring into your life by the conscious decisions you make. And because that's ever changing and ever evolving, and if it just confirms the fact when we say we are God because remember, I always tell you, being a god or a goddess ties into the concept. It means to be responsible, one, for your actions, and to take credit for your successes and your failures. So being responsible. So we are the ones as gods or goddesses that make the decisions and the choices that shape our life via cause and effect. The decision is the cause. The result of that decision is the effect. Henceforth, karma in a very simplistic way. It's that fucking simple. If we keep this simple, it's easy, one, to master ourselves, to master our lives, and to be moving in a direction where we can be productive and get results. So that's changing constantly. So this is why you always hear me use the term chaos will continue to emerge, because life will always present situations and challenges based on choices we make where we'll have to face that chaos. So the wrong approach is when your life is upside down in disarray. Oh man, the devil is a lie. He's out to get me. That's religion, right? And in all of those mindsets, you're taught not to take any responsibility. People who are in those mindsets never take any responsibility for their actions. It's always somebody else's fault. Somebody did this to me. This person's out to get me. That one did some root work on me. I told you the biggest hustle is falling into the trap where you think somebody did spiritual work on you. It's only effective if you accept it and you embrace it. And when I say accept it and embrace it, it works on docile, fearful people. Okay? And I'm not saying root work, ritual work, and destructive work on an individual doesn't work, because it does. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it works on a certain mindset is what I'm saying. It has to be a certain type of mindset that has allowed themselves to be open to all the things that are adverse to what I'm talking about. It's that simple. And what we tend to do a lot is we make things a lot more complicated than they actually are. That's our fault. Sometimes we're looking for some deep, heavy, intense breakdown or something, and it ain't even that deep. And some people get fucking disappointed. Like, they were looking for some real heavy, complex shit. It's not what it's about, people. All right. So what I will do now, I will go through the chat. So I don't waste too much time, because I know then I sometimes run short of time and I can't get to everybody. Let me see what kind of questions you guys got. Hopefully you got some questions, I would hope. Whoops. I know this Instagram is going to cut off in 23 seconds, so I'm going to have to restart it. I do see this one question I saw here by Mitch Rapp. Ah, shit. Hold on. Let me restart the Instagram. Hold on. All right, restarting the Instagram. Hold on. Let me just get them back connected, and then I'll go through the chat. I'll start at the top and work my way down. I hope you guys got some good questions. All right. As you know, the hour time limit, back on Instagram, the hour time limit ended. I've restarted it. I saw one question in there that caught my eye. I don't know if Mitch Rapp is still in there, but retype that question in if you get a chance. All right. So let's go to the top of the chat. Yeah, again, if Mitch Rapp come back in, or if you're here, retype your question in the Instagram. All right, so infernal blessings to all. Kiona, Demetrius, Dawn Dixon, Mystic Moons. Oh, okay, we got, I hope I don't butcher your name here. Oricio, I hope I didn't butcher your name. Greetings from Germany. Good to see you here. Ritual Spirit, yes, the event is in North Fort Lauderdale. And I assume you were inquiring about what I was talking about in the beginning of the video, the Journey of the Black Adept Conference number 3. Yes, that event is in North Fort Lauderdale, and it's scheduled for October 30th to November 1st. Again, if you or anybody else listening would like more information on it, shoot me an email. The email is right there in the chat at the top. It's in the description box of all the videos, along with the Patreon channel, patreon.com/Beniti. But yes, the event is in North Fort Lauderdale. That is correct. So the best airport to fly into at that time is Fort Lauderdale. Actually, we're smack in the middle of all 3 major airports where the event is. Miami, I would try to avoid altogether because that airport sucks ass. Even the airport in West Palm Beach isn't that far. But the closest, with a matter of minutes, I would say West Palm Beach Airport is probably about 20 minutes, 20 to 25-minute ride from where the event is. Fort Lauderdale is probably about 10-minute ride, very short. Miami's probably about 30 to 35 minutes. So really all 3 major airports are vessels into the event or avenues you could take into the event, but Fort Lauderdale would be the best. All right. All right. So also infernal blessings to Asmodee Diablos, Blair Jones, Brother Jack. Brother Jack, I got to give you a call, man. Mystic Moons put Irish sea moss is good too. Yes. When I was talking about stuff earlier to build up your immune system, that is a good point. So also take note of that. That is a good suggestion. Irish sea moss. I haven't been able to find, I used to go, there was a Jamaican restaurant I used to go to up in New York, and they make that real thick Irish moss. I would stay away from a lot of those prepackaged ones that you see in some of these natural food stores. There was a spot in New York. It was also an herbal store that some Rastas ran. If you can find like a good Jamaican herbal store, some Rastas who make it, the good kind, there's a lot of bullshit like that prepackaged. You'll see like in a lot of the Jamaican restaurants, they have that packaged one that comes in like a plastic bottle. I forget the name of it. It's like liquidy, too liquidy and thin. That shit is, don't fuck with none of that stuff. But another good point. Irish sea moss is good. What else we got? Yeah, mental health for sure is at an all-time low right now due to fear. All right. Let me see what I got over here. All right. Since I could see some questions here on the Instagram, I'm going to come back over to the YouTube in a second. Let me see what I got over here on the Instagram. Mitch, I was saying earlier, Mitch Rapp, you had typed a question or comment. I was going to read it before it got cut off and didn't get finished reading it. So if you want to retype that in. All right. So add an account 77 types in. This is on Instagram. With the 72 demons and angels, what's the real difference? Why do so many seem the same? Are demons the same as angels on a spectrum? All right, so let's establish this. There's yes and no to your question, and let me explain. One, we need to identify the word angel. What's the origin of that word? In English, it comes from the Greek word angelos. The Greek word angelos means messenger, right? So in the sense, they are the same because we are receiving messages from them. So we need to put that in its correct context. So I want to get that out of the way. Now, why some appear to be the same. Now, the word daemon, let's address the word demon, is a watered down or incorrect way of spelling the original Greek word daemon, D-A-E-M-O-N, which I talk about a lot. The word demon comes into play after monotheism became prominent, right? The word in English from the Old Latin was taken and translated into a lot of the religious texts as demon, D-E-M-O-N, the familiar spelling most of us are familiar with in English. It's not the same thing because the meaning completely changes. Now, the Greek word daemon, where the English word demon comes from, it just means your higher self, right? So the reason why we talk about working with daemons or demons, we're activating or connecting with our higher self, whereas we're trying to tap into those messages that you see that are rooted in for example, in the Greek word angel or angelos, right? Now, yes, the functioning when we're talking about the 72 Goetia or / Lords of Darkness, whatever you want to call them, remember the word Goetia is just a Greek word for daemon. It's another word that they use to describe a spirit or it's a Greek word, and we don't want to get caught up in that. And as I said before, it predates the Keys of Solomon. Most are familiar with it through Hebrew mysticism or the Keys of Solomon. Now, having said that, yes, a lot of them represent similar characteristics because they're archetypes, right? You could see similarities, for an example, when I was talking about Agares or Marbas, as far as some could be destructive type of energies that are devouring and destroy things and remove obstacles from your path. You'll see some Goetia or Lords of Darkness that work exclusively with finance, career, wealth. So yes, a lot of them have similar character types, okay? So it's about knowing, again, which one to connect with. If you're having financial difficulties, then you might want to connect with a daemon that assists with that. If you're having relationship issues, because it's the same process I'll use when I'm doing a demonic reading for a client. You know, if they're doing, say, a general Lucifer reading, which that we focus on nothing in particular. We just flow with it and we see what comes up. And if stuff comes up, say in relationship to career, to finance, or relation or money, or resolving issues with an individual or spiritual attacks, usually one of the demons will come forward that address that area. So that's how we put them into its perspective. So yes, there's similarities between them and what they represent. And hopefully that's clarity on the word angel. That's why some will say the 72 angels or the 72 demons. I don't like to use the word angel. The only reason why is because it's just connected too much to religious theology. You understand? That's just my perspective. Even the English word demon. But it fucks people up when you say daemon, or you use the correct term, where it comes from in the Greek is agatha daemon, right? E-A-G-A-T-H-A-D-A-E-M-O-N. You take the agatha off, you have the word daemon. This is very, very popular term in Hermeticism. Anybody that studies Hermetic mysticism knows that's where it comes from, but filtered through religion, so it can get a little confusing. Okay, so hopefully that helps. Okay, then you also follow up with, as part of the same question, for instance, all the angels have negative side effects like the demons do. I'm a newbie, so I'm wondering what demon I should work with. What do you recommend? And again, I'm not sure if you were listening earlier, not to rehash it. That's always determined by what's going on in your life. Make sure you're connecting, and what's going on in your life is determined. The first thing you should be doing before you do any work like that is shadow work. Whether you're using alchemy for that, you need to really do work first, establishing things, or if you already know on the surface, you need to really understand what are certain things you need to work on and correct about yourself. And then you should be connecting with angels or demons, whatever you want to call them, that work in those areas of your life. You shouldn't just randomly be picking them, because you could be opening up other aspects of yourself that you're just not prepared or ready to deal with. So that's where you should always begin. But you should always begin with shadow work first, understanding, doing work that's designed. A good book I'd recommend for that is Alchemy for Personal Transformation by Dennis William Huck, Hauck. There's a lot of exercises one can do in there. Alchemy, which is really higher forms of shadow work. I would suggest work like that first, and then seeing what awareness you open up within yourself and see where it takes you. Okay. All right. Let me see if there's anything else here. Then I'm gonna go back over to the YouTube. All right. Yeah, and also, yeah, if you decide you're interested in doing that, and what's your name, Anand's account 77. Yeah, contact me, and I'd probably recommend for a newbie that reaches out to me for a demonic reading, I would just do it general. I wouldn't really focus on anything particular. Just see what the spirits bring up. Don't even. Some people, if you got an issue going on, that's one thing. Some people will contact me because they're dealing with something specific. That's one thing. If you have a clear cut thing in mind you need resolution on, I get that. But if you don't really have a specific thing, I always recommend just doing a general reading. See what the spirits want to communicate. See what the spirits want to say or talk to you about what's going on. It's always a good thing to do that. All right, I'm gonna come back over there. I'll check that back. Let me come back over here to YouTube. Let me see what else we got here. Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback again. Good comment from Adam Monk. I'm sure from what I was saying earlier, but let me reiterate it. Great. Keep doing, keep moving, keep enjoying. No fear, no panic. That's it. That's it. That's the way you get through these trying times. Don't get out of your own. When I say routine, I'm not just talking about a programmed, indoctrinated routine by society or religion. I'm talking about your own personal routine. Notice I always put the word personal there. The routine that you should be doing. Every one of us on this path should have a routine that's customized. Excuse me. Allergies. You should have your own personal routine that you have designed that fits your personal lifestyle. Right? You should have a routine for your time for your ritualistic work, your study, your meditation, time for your play, your socializing, entertainment, or if your family, spending time with your family, your kids. That's our own personal routine that works for us. Not we don't need to do this structured routine, the regular Sunday to Saturday routine that society programs. Some of us, our Saturday and Sunday could be Wednesday and Thursday because that might be the 2 days you have off. You get my point. You need to adjust. But I know now with everything that's going on, a majority of us have the time. And if you came on late, like I was saying earlier, there was people who were always bitching about, oh man, I'm so busy. I work all the time, or I run my business. My business takes all my time. I don't have time to do anything, right? This is why I can't succeed on this path. Now those same people, some of them are bitching about, I don't know what to do with myself. I have all this time. They have so much time. They don't know what the fuck to do with themselves. That's a person, as I said earlier, if you came on late, who doesn't have that correct inner harmony. That's a person who's very disconnected from themselves, because when you have this downtime and you have more centralized time to focus on yourself, some people might be fearful of what they may encounter. I told you I had a person who will remain anonymous, a colleague of mine. Hey man, there's only so much you could do around the house. He contacted me because he's bored. I'm like, shit. I can't help you with your boredom. What you really need to be looking at is there's something wrong with you. And that's us usually telltale, very early beginning stages, a sign of somebody who is not in a sound mind. That's when the mind now starts to wander off and look for things to entertain it because they're not in control of their minds. And remember, I said many times before, if you lose your mind, you lose your soul. I was talking about the 12 occult nerves or the cranial nerves earlier, which help for proper functioning of the central nervous system, which are key components that deliver through those small holes at the base of the skull, deliver messages to the brain. right? Well, some people ain't getting the correct messages, right? I was saying all those things for a reason because I was trying to get people to understand and see something. Okay? So your mental health and well-being is critical right now, especially to a degree. I hate to use that word confinement, right? Because we're not really in confinement. We're just restricted. I mean, really, you can go wherever the fuck you want. It's just if you were smart, you just wouldn't go certain places right now with all that's going on. That's it. But if you don't have enough of things to keep you busy and occupy yourself in your own personal domain, your house, then something is wrong with you. What were you doing prior to this? Then the only thing you really had that was keeping you busy was your job or your work or your career. And if they took you, that being taken away temporarily or for whatever it may be, permanently, and you don't have anything else there, then there's a lot of work you need to do on yourself. That's a confirmation of. So these are the things we need to focus on. These are the things we need to think about. All right. What else we got? Brother Jack says prioritizing yourselves is key right now. That's true. Hey, what's going on, Sister S? All right. What else we got here? Word Weaver, greetings from Southern California. Well, greetings from South Florida. Greetings back to you. Eddie, there he is. It's my boy Eddie Machete. Eddie Machete's in the building. Mandela Bourne, what's going on, brother? Peace. Hope everything is frontal blessings to you. Hope everything's well. All right, we've got Blade of Asterith. Okay. He says, was just talking to a friend on the phone about the difference between navigating / mastering the darkness and being consumed / devoured by the darkness of the abyss. That's true. Man, that's true because eyes are killing me with these damn. Let's take them on. No, I need them to read. I don't know what the fuck I want to do. Just keep them on. That's in essence what this is about. Because you can classify it making order out of your chaos. You can use whatever terms you want to use. When we have no control and facilitation over the enemy, that's how we can be devoured by it. Now, navigating is a good term to use because navigating to me is being able to identify the who, what, when, and where, and how to work with these energies. Because once you have that knowledge and that understanding, you're able to navigate through certain situations, work through them, and get the desired results and outcome. So very important. But that's a good comment. Very important. Blair Jones says, what are the techniques to increase will during program? Well, that just all depends on what you uncover in your shadow work. Depends on what areas of your will need to be fortified. Is it increasing your will for not handling money correctly? Is it increasing and strengthening your will to maybe you have a bad temper or you're struggling with anger issues? It could be increasing your will for a particular situation. But overall, it's just about, if we're saying just our willpower in all of those areas in its totality, again, it's about identifying the certain situations and scenarios you're dealing with. And that's going to change constantly because there's things that are constantly changing in our life. So whatever we got going on in our life is going to dictate how we need to be strong in those areas of will. It's very important. So it just depends on what's going on in your life and what you're dealing with. But your overall willpower should always be a well-balanced formula between indulgence, not overindulgence, okay, but indulgent to a certain degree, because that's how we don't cave into certain things that can consume us. So, for an example, if it's food and sexual desires, suppressing them altogether is not strengthening your will. That's actually creating more resistance. And then usually it's going to explode and backfire on you, blow up in your face, and you're going to go buck wild. And then you can give in to your lustful desires, or you can give in to craving junk food and just eating everything in sight. You don't care about it. You don't care about yourself or your health. Just two quick examples. So it's about strengthening your will is about finding that fine line between indulging to a degree so you can experience, because the only way you're going to know is by experiencing to a degree. So it's the same thing with food. It's not don't ever eat ice cream or don't ever eat cheesecake or don't ever eat junk food. It just means don't eat junk food 24/7, or not even 24/7. Don't eat it consistently throughout the week. I told you. So here's how I strengthen my will with that. I love ice cream. Used to eat it all the time. Love it. If there was no repercussions to it, I would eat the shit every day. So I put myself on a once a month. What do they call that? When you exercise and you eat bad food, cheat day. I give myself once a month, and those that know come down here. We usually go to Flanagan's, and they have this big bonsai brownie ice cream thing. It's brownies, Kit Kats, Oreos, and ice cream. So how I enforce my will not to cave in is I got my mind programmed. I have a once a month cheat date when it comes to shit like that. Whereas now the mind starts to register. It's the same way. If you're eating it all the time, then the mind starts to expect it. So when you see it, you crave it. But I noticed as time went by, my mind is now programmed. I don't focus on any of that stuff. It's not mandatory. I don't need it. But I know when that once a month date comes around that time of the month, that's when I'm going to get my indulgence in. So just some examples like that. All right. Blade of Astartes says, mastering chaos is the way of Set. That's correct. To be crushed by chaos is to be devoured by a pet. That's correct. Not really much to add to that, but that is a good statement. All right. Mystic Moon says, I was reading a few days ago that documented cases of people who have experienced possession, like Annalise Michel, are often diagnosed with epilepsy. Yes. The cranial nerve is a stimulation for epilepsy. Yes. Man, you bring up a specific incident, and I can tell you this is definitely a fact. I had a partner going back, and again, I'm not going to say his name. It's not important. You just triggered and hit something that's very factual. I had a partner who I don't really affiliate or associate anymore, and I'm going back to I'm going to say early to late 90s when I was into all that conscious comedic stuff and all that nonsense. Well, at that time, it wasn't nonsense. And I had a good close friend of mine who suffered bad from epilepsy. And my only one experience with somebody with epilepsy, I had a firsthand experience. He was we did an event, we traveled, we got back real late. So I had told him, just, go ahead, crash on the couch and, I'll take you home in the morning, because it was real late, like 1, 2 o'clock. And he had lived about 25, 30 minutes away. So it was like, all right, fuck it. And I'll never forget, he was sleeping on the couch. And at that time, the house that I had owned, it was only a 2-bedroom house. It was a small house. And I had my oldest son who was born, who was the only one born at that time. He was about, I'm going to say 6 or 7 years old. He was real young. That's my big one. That's 27 now. And his room was here. Mine was right across. There's a hallway, the living room, and he was sleeping on the couch. And I never forget this shit. And what you just typed in triggered, made me reflect on this many times after that. So I'm hearing kind of like, I don't want to say grunting sounds, but grunting and kind of like moaning and pain sounds. And it just sounded crazy, sounded weird. So the first thing I'm thinking is somebody was breaking in the house, because I'm hearing this noise and I couldn't really determine what it is. So the first thing I did was, what I grabbed? I grabbed the little strap I had at the time, which was a little 45. And, I get up and I walk into the living room and, I'm ready to, my mentality is shoot X questions later. So I'm walking down the hallway, I cut the lights on, and I see him fell off the couch. He's on the floor. He was having an epilepsy seizure. And my wife at the time grabbed a sock, and we were able to get it up under his tongue so he didn't, because you got to be careful they don't bite or swallow their tongue. And when you watch somebody like that, I bring that up, one, the physical, if anybody's ever seen that up hand, experienced it, it appears like the person looks like they're being possessed. It's a really bizarre experience. Now, what it does, the cranial nerve, because remember, it's responsible for sending messages through the holes at the bottom of the base of the skull, right? And as you just said there as you typed in your comment, it stimulates epilepsy. Because remember, one of the functions, that's why the tongue bugs out. If you remember when I was reading, it was talking about proper function of the tongue, the ocular nerves, and that's why you see the eyes usually go back into the back of the head. These are explanations of why when they have a fit or attack, you see those physical effects, right? And that's a good point. And how when you type in too, why it seems for people who are more prime candidates for spirit possession, because those occult or cranial nerves are damaged by more of the attacks they have over X amount of years, that they become damaged. Now, to validate my point, and again, I'm not a doctor, so I want to make sure anytime I talk about things that might be medically related, I want to make sure. I'm not saying I'm a doctor. I'm not saying don't go against your healthcare practitioner's medical advice. I want to make that clear, because I want nobody to come back and say, oh, Beniti said. No, we're talking here. I'm sharing information. It is your job to utilize the information and be responsible. This same individual, because he suffered from attacks regularly, because of what you're talking about, those occult nerves became so damaged, or cranial nerves, he was admitted for a period of time into a mental institution. And you could see to this day, I mean, he's stable now, more zombified now, because a lot of the medications they put him on. But you could see the damage it did to him. And knowing him for well over 15 to 20 years, if you see, it's like if you're talking to him now, it's not the same person you first knew in the first couple of years I knew him. And he probably started developing the epilepsy about 4 to 5 years into my relationship with him or friendship with him. And it definitely does affect that. Now, why they become more candidates to spirit possession? Okay, it's important we educate ourselves, right? I don't give a fuck what anybody says. There's certain things I'm going to share you're not going to find in a book somewhere. You're not going to validate it by some fucking source. And those people get on my fucking nerves. You know, we can't rely on books to validate everything for us. But at the same time, we can't pass our personal experiences on for others to validate them for us. Keep that in mind when I'm getting ready to say what I'm getting ready to say. You have to understand when a person's vibrational frequency is low. In a case when somebody like that, and this is a really good point you bring up, that is in a state of mind like that and has a lot of damage from epilepsy, seizures, or attacks, they are prime candidates for possession, because the damage that's created in those cranial or occult nerves, right? And how that throws the individual off in all aspects mentally, right? Remember, when we're talking about demons, spirits, jinns, angels, whatever the fuck you want to call it, that floats your boat, okay? When we talk about something that a lot of people always talk about on face value called, in Eastern mysticism, it's called the halut, right? We call it the aura in English, right? We say your aura. Right? I love people people fucking kill me. Yeah, brother or sister, yeah, your aura is vibrating. I see it. Motherfuckers don't see shit. Okay. Well, these entities that we call spirits, these energies, which is just a good way to sum up all of it. These energies, this is how they are able to see. When I'm talking about a seeing that we see with the naked eye, your halut or aura gives off a certain color, which ties into a certain vibration and frequency that the color gives off, right? And these spirits are now, that's the magnet or the energy that you send out that attracts these spirits. So people that are candidates for possession have a very low countenance, or their aura is vibrating at such a low frequency. And this is why people such as that or others that fall into that category can be very prime candidates for what we call spirit possession. Okay. It's people of a very low nature and character, people who vibrate at a low frequency, who are grounded and rooted on the material plane, and that's it. Who lack total harmony with any of the other planes. Now, know on the occult or on our path, there's 11 chakras, not 7, not 9. I've talked a little bit about that. I've talked about the 9. I ain't even talked about the 10th and the 11th. I've built a little bit on that. That's a whole class for another time. See, that's step one. That's the lie. I talked a little bit about the dark star chakra and some other thing, but I haven't really built on that. I'll save that for another time because I don't want this to turn into or start branching out into other areas. But again, to what you commented on, Mystic Moons, that's why a person with epilepsy is a candidate or could be a possible candidate for what we term spirit possession. Now, we got to be careful when we use that term, and I'm just speaking in general now. People hear spirit possession, that's not always a bad thing. It's bad when it's bad when it happens, you have no control over it. I also seen this with another young brother from El Salvador. I'll never forget this. This was the late 90s, and we were doing a voodoo drumming out on the beach. And first of all, this dude already had mental issues. And it was instructed and he was advised by several people it would not be good that he should attend a function like this because of the energy that was going to be there, type of energy that was going to be brought down. When I say brought down, I'm just saying symbolically activated. We're not bringing it down from anywhere, but you know what I mean when I say that. Anyway, he opened himself up to a lot of energy there, and to this day, dude is not good. All right. So that, again, I bring that up because that ties into your mind state, your frequency and your vibration. And, they're actually, which I haven't shared with people, it's actually something we've learned in some of the mystical orders we study. And there is a way you could actually see your aura. There's a ritual you could do. I plan on tackling that at some point on the Patreon page. It's not something I would discuss here. It's a literal ritual with a few implements you set up where you can see your actual aura, not through Kirlian photography. That's the simple way. But you can actually see what you got kind of vibrating or what type of energy or frequency you're vibrating at. And that's important to understand because it's going to tell a lot about yourself. And sometimes people do that ritual and they think they're so wholesome or whatever the fuck they want to call it. And they're working with a lot of dark, clouded energy that they're not really dealing with and addressing, which could be a bad thing and a good thing. A bad thing if there's no control over it. So, yeah, we need to be cautious of that. So, but that's a good point. Not to stay on that too long. But that's why a person with epilepsy is a good candidate for that, unfortunately. All right. What else we got? All right. Demetrius says, Kali is the embodiment of a spiritual enema. At least in my experience, cleaned everything out and put it back together. It was wonderful and horrible at the same time. That is a great way to describe it. And it is. That's the beauty of it. This is why when you look at images of Kali, right? Remember, the original Kali mother goddess. Kali means black, the black mother. I know everybody's familiar with the modern day image of Kali, the bluish, greenish, more Hindu, Indo-Aryan version of Kali, which comes after the fact. Remember, the Dravidian culture, which is now known as the Hindu culture, the ancient Dravidians were African. We need to understand that. I'm not saying that to make this a black or African thing. I'm just because it's fact. Remember, when the land masses, whether you call it Pangea, the continental drift, whatever the fuck you want to call it, remember, there was a connection between all those continents, right? The mixing, whether you're talking about the Hyksos into Northeast Africa and Egypt, or whether you're talking about the Indo or the Aryans coming in and mixing into Africa, which later produced what we see our modern day Hindus today. Hence the reason why they still might have dark skin, but they have the straight hair and they have more of the alkaline or the European features. The same thing you see in Northeast Africa. If you look at Somalia today, Ethiopia, you might see somebody with a very dark black bluish pigmentation, but they might have very alkaline features, right? So how could somebody that dark have thin nose, not too thick lips, high cheekbones, or very thin high cheekbones? That comes from all the genetic race mixing, right? So no, Kali originally, if you see the original images of Kali depicted, she was a black African goddess. That's fact. And I ain't saying that to get on no pro-black movement shit. Fact is fact. So a lot of us understand the more modern aspect of Kali. And in her imagery, to Demetrius's explanation, which is a very good, in my opinion, a way to describe it, there's so many images of beauty and horror simultaneously, right? We have to understand when we look upon and gaze upon the image of Kali, right? One, she has the knife of separation, right? You see, she carries that Pekibet knife, as we call it, right? Which represents separation. You see her, one, in some images, she has standing above Shiva, which represents a couple of different things, right? It represents, well, back to the knife and the aspect of death. And you see these, you'll see bloody images, you'll see multiple heads or skulls. All the death and the implements that are connected with separation and death. When we're gazing upon the image of Kali, she represents the fierce mother goddess. When you see her trampling over Shiva, right? You're talking about different concepts, whether we're looking in ancient Egypt with Set and Osiris or Osir, Set Heru. We're still dealing with the theme of conquering the lower self. That's what all that stuff represents. The death, the separation, the domination, right? You see, Kali represents that, but still maintains also a divine feminine aspect of sexuality, which is there. And underneath that horror is the utmost beauty. I'm not just talking physically, because of what Demetrius typed in. And I'm sharing some of my experiences with Kali, too, that are very similar to what Demetrius typed in. So this is why I said earlier, for all the surface people, that right, everybody's like, oh yeah, man, I work with Kali. She's a sexual goddess. Yeah, I worked with Vama Marga, which is, sexual tantra and all that. And then they get themselves fucked up. And I'm like, okay, what else did you work with Kali with? Because if that's what you approach Kali with, and then these same people will turn around and come back a little later, man, shit, some fucked up shit happened, blah, 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 because I already know why. Because all you have to do is look upon Kali's image at first, and she's telling you what she's about. She is a road opening. She is a tornado waiting to happen. And when you access Kali and you're asking for change, it's very simple. I've said this a million times before, and I'm going to say it again. Don't confuse the change you want with the change you need. That's where people get fucked up. So the change they might want might be a nicer car. The change they might want might be a better sexual partner. The change they might want is to have an abundance of money. But Kali might say, in order to have that deadbeat dude that you're living with that stays on the couch all day and plays PlayStation, he got to go. Or that deadbeat woman that's a gold digger sucking you for all your money, even though you think you're in love with her ass needs to go. You understand? Or that deadbeat job you're working, you think that's your career path. I'm going to swipe that shit out your path and open up another path. See, we don't look at it like that. We look at it like, you know how many times I get this? Hey, I did a ritual with Kali for sexual energy and money, and man, shit got worse for me. I get this all. You don't know how many emails I get about this all the time. I go, and what did you do? And then they tell me what they did, and I go, well, the answer to your problem is real simple. Your approach was all fucked up. It was all wrong, completely all wrong. So we have to first understand what we're dealing with, what's in front of us. And most people, in this case, since we're talking about Kali, they don't really know what they're working with. They think they do, and they have all this. And then there's this new age aspect of Kali, which I don't know where the fuck that came from, like there is with Lilith. There's this new agey Mother Goddess Kali thing. And I think that's really watered down with that whole Dinah or Dina aspect in Wicca and all that shit. That I can't vibe with at all, because I don't even really, I just think that's some just watered down shit. But yeah, we need to understand that. Remember, when you're working with these deities or archetypes, remember, don't confuse. I'm going to say it again. If there's anything you forget today, don't confuse what you want with what you need. It's two different things. And some of us haven't sat down and really thought about that. This is how you do shadow work. Shadow work will show you what you need as opposed to what you want. Now, if the wants and needs are in alignment with each other, then so be it. But 9 out of 10 times they ain't. People spend their life chasing things they want, but they haven't done the shadow work to determine they don't really need any of that shit. That's where the struggle comes in. But you have to come to that conclusion. You have to come to that identification process on your own. Okay? What else we got here? Yes, and a good comment. Hope I won't butcher your name either. Lambraj Moon. Hopefully I didn't butcher that. Once they allow themselves to be open, they unconsciously manifest it right into their life. That's true. That goes back to all the things I was saying earlier. You have to allow yourself to be open to it. Usually people that are open to attacks, spirit possession, etc., are people who have a very weak mind and low mental and vibrating frequency. That's how spell work works. That's how root work works, right? And this is why any good spiritualist will tell you, if you do spell work to try to get a loved one back, you're getting a shell of the person back, because you're using spirits to control the mind of a weak individual. And people think that person's going to come back the way they were previously. Like, you think all the good times and the things you used to do together are going to be exactly the same. The energy is going to be the same, the vibe. And then it's not, because you're getting a shell of the person back because of that. And it becomes more work to keep that person in mind. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother day. But my whole point is, it connects to what we're talking about. You have to be in a certain mind state, and you can be susceptible to it. Isisrius, do the archdemons kick it with you until you master whatever you needed that activation for it? Yes, it just depends on what you're working with. But really, in order to connect with the higher demons on a consistent level, is there moments, breakthrough moments? Yeah, we all can have breakthrough moments. Just like the person that does ritualistic work that's not consistent or has no continuity, but they get moments or periods, where things are going great, and then boom, shit crashes. That's usually the sign of a person, again, that's lacking that consistency or harmony. But I still think it's about mastering those other aspects first. Your shadow work, understanding the process prior to that will create a more consistent, harmonious flow with that connection, is what I'm saying. But that's a good point. All right. Tamiel Sabazio says, hey, I was wondering about vampire feeding and the coronavirus. Are there any dangers? I work in a COVID hospital, and I'm not sure if it's a good idea. Well, know this. Let's keep it 100. Throughout the course of a day, there's always a vampiric exchange of energy happening 24/7. Okay? The longer I sit here and do a video, I'm giving energy, and I can feel it. So something is being taken. So when you're having a conversation with somebody, the person that's talking is giving all the time. I'm going to start basic, and I'm going to work my way up to your question. And somebody's receiving. So we have to always understand that the giving and taking process is always happening continuously. There's always a giving of your energy, and there always is a taking. Now, first, I don't know what your role or job is in the hospital. I don't know if you are a nurse, a doctor, an assistant. I don't know if you do administration or clerical duties. So I'm not sure what you do, because that will have an effect. Let me commend you. Whatever you do, just for being in there, let me give you respect for that. This is just me speaking. Nobody has to agree with it. I give all people who are in that field right now and connected of it the utmost respect. So let me throw that out there. Again, it's going to vary. If you're in direct contact with patients, and it sounds like you possibly are, maybe you'll type something in down lower. I don't know if you work at the desk and you're doing, again, clerical processing paperwork stuff. You are in there and connected to the energy. So now, is there something to worry about? The only thing I would worry about is keeping yourself safe and protected, and making sure in no shape, form, or fashion that you contract the disease physically. Yes, there's a lot more energy in there because of what people are dealing with mentally and emotional. But if you are in sound mind and your awareness is there, and it seems to be, I wouldn't worry about, any type of vampiric attacks. I would make sure when you go home, you do something to regenerate your chakras, any type of cleansing or chakra ritual or type of work to regenerate your chakras. I would make sure you do stuff like that, cleansing yourself. And it could be as simple as focusing in on some type of green light or energy that you see at the base of your root chakra and working its way up counterclockwise out through the crown, just to get yourself clean and re-energized. And that's spiritual cleansing I'm talking about. But no, I wouldn't fear on that level. I would just take the precautions physically. That's more of a concern. There's only danger if you go in there completely feared and out of your mind, and you think it's going to start affecting you on a mental and a spiritual level. Then you can be under attack. But I would tell you in this case, I wouldn't worry about that. I'd be more focused on protecting myself and taking the physical precautions that I need. That's more of a concern. Excuse me. But good question. Good question by Mystic Moon. When working with the energies of the princes of hell or other demonic energies, bringing them forth from within, is a black mirror needed, or can it be done without? You can do both. It doesn't have to be done with a black mirror. A black mirror is effective. You can create any invocation or work with or without the black mirror. The black mirror tends to be effective because when you use it in line with your ritualistic work, let's say for an example, as a gateway or a porthole to the abyss or the void, it tends to be a little bit more lasting and impacting on the subconscious mind. For simplistic terms, it tends to enhance the ritual a bit more. So that's entirely up to you. But yeah, it can be done either way. It's not mandatory to use the black mirror at all. Okay, soul therapy tarot. Trying to tap into Samuel. I think you meant Samael, I would assume. You put Samuel. Just want to make sure. I think that's probably just a typo, I would assume. I consider, actually, it's funny you bring it up. Samael, I would consider probably one or a Patreon type of archetype. I do a lot of work with Samael. And I've always described Samael almost similar to how we were describing. There's beauty and horror in Samael simultaneously. Samael, when you connect with the energy of Samael, he really makes you reflect on every aspect of your life, especially the things that need to be devoured. Because remember, there's another aspect of seeing Samael the Black, or Samael the Angel of Death. And he is invoked to destroy things about yourself that need to be destroyed. And sometimes when you tap into that, he makes you see it. It's very mental. It's very emotional. And it incites a lot of different influx of emotions through you. So I know in my work with Samael and this doing workings with him, I found myself in the same working, smiling, laughing, crying, sad, joyful. And then when you feel the wrath and the fury and the vengeance of Samael, which is an important aspect of that energy to connect with, because we need that. Some of us lack that. Some of us also are shown we have too much of it. I was shown I have too much of it. I can be too explosive, and I was shown how that can be destructive by Samael. And I was also shown by Samael how to channel and work with that energy harmonious. So I'm learning through Samael when to be aggressive and chop the head off when need be. And I'm learning when to discipline myself and be compassionate. It is a very powerful energy. There's a good book by Edgar Corval. I believe it's called Shem Jaza. Just Google Edgar Corval. He's got a small pamphlet. It's about 80 pages. It's exclusively about Samael. It's basic invocations and good ritual work. Very simplistic, not complicated, but powerful ritualistic work. It's a good primer for those such as yourself or anybody else listening that might be interested in working with Samael. I just did a class on my Patreon page a few weeks ago on Samael, the Angel of Death, for Patreon members. And I did a whole class on how to work with Samael, different techniques, rituals, practices, meditations. We actually did one. What I do in those type of classes, I usually have like a group visual meditation and things of that nature. We actually did one together live. It's a very powerful energy. It's one that I enjoy with the utmost in working with because to me, it's a very needed energy on this path. But having said that, it's not for the faint of heart. I don't consider myself to get sad or emotional easily for the most part, but Samael will strip you and bring you down to your knees and make you feel vulnerable just so you can understand where you need to be. Hopefully that makes sense to people listening. It's like going in the Masonic Lodge. You're stripped and divested of everything, including all metals. Look at it as the great initiation with Samael. You go through the lodge, divested of everything, just to see what you can take. And sometimes in order to see what you have, it has to be all taken away. I've said that many times before. That's Samael. So, yeah. All right, where else we at here? Oops, hold on, skipped. Edward Dan, thank you for the donation. Just saw it there at the top. Appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to take a few more and then wrap this up. Probably went over a little bit. Hold on. I skipped here. Let me see what else we got. Yeah, Dennis William Huck. That is the book. Alchemy for Personal Transformation by Dennis William Huck. If whoever was asking for the book. Yes, Keona Carter. Will you please elaborate on the dangers of asking spirits for favors, i.e. monies, and there being a cost for nothing? Nothing is free. No, that's true. You always should have an intent. Now, it depends on what pantheon, archetypes of spirits you are working for. This is why sometimes offerings are given for certain spirits. It could be just a sacrament offering of could be red wine. It could be a small, very safe, small amount of your blood, which is safely drawn from your finger, a very small amount via a sigil. Yes. And not just in the spirit realm, nothing in life is free. The air you breathe, as my mother said, isn't free, right? But I would suggest not to take the mindset or the approach, and I'm not saying that's how you meant it. You never want to go to work, especially with certain spirits, trying to bargain. I always go with the mindset, if I'm working with a spirit that can bring about that change, I make sure that it avoids, that is the needed area or point in your life where you're at. And you should always be focused on a realistic and a practical goal. For an example, I would never go to work with a spirit. I'm just speaking in general, not just based on what you said, Kiona. I would never say, "Oh, look, spirit, if you give me $25,000, I promise you this and that." You don't do that with spirits. That's not how this works. If you're always focused and centralized on the necessary change you need. See, I personally never go into any spiritual work. Let's just say, for an example, favors or money. I stopped that years ago because I found if you go in with dealing with an overall awareness and an understanding, I'm always looking for harmonies. Like, for an example, when I'm doing ritualistic work with any spirits or demons, I'm always asking For all paths and roads to be open spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially, all harmony in all those areas. I don't really focus on a specific thing when it comes to money magic or work. I focus on a consistency of money flow coming in consistently rather than amount, or where some people might do money work to obtain an object, a card, let's say. I don't do shit like that because I found that's not productive. I take the approach symbolically, like I use the story of Solomon as a symbolic example. If you have knowledge of self first, everything else you can obtain. So I'm always more concerned with doing work. I want to have the knowledge, the wisdom first, because I know if I have the knowledge and the wisdom, everything else will come. So I stopped doing work like that years ago, because when you have the knowledge and the wisdom, it opens the door to all of those things. I found all the materialistic things start to come. When situations arise, things will manifest. You still got to do the work, but avenues and paths will open for things that are needed in your life to manifest, even in times like now. That's why I don't stress it like maybe some other people might be. You should be focused in that area, because when your mindset is in that area, not only is your vibrational frequency changed completely, your thought process, this is the whole saying in alchemy and mysticism, do without doing. As I've said this many times before, it doesn't mean just sit back and don't do nothing. It means sometimes by our example, by just our overall functioning and how we do it, is almost doing without doing, because it becomes second nature. We don't really have to make that extended effort, but that's a good point. That would be my suggestion there. All right. The effects after it all depends on, again, your state of mind, your well-being, your health too can have a lot to do with that, the effects, because I've talked about that many times before. So again, a lot of that is determined on what's going on in your life. It could be short periods of time, but usually a good, powerful ritualistic working leaves a lasting impression on your subconscious mind. And you're able to access it at certain points in your life. And how many times I've done ritualistic work, a moment in my life happens and something I did 5, 6, 7 years ago, a teaching moment just pops right up. Like, bam, I'll connect back to something I did years ago and go, oh, that's what that was. Bam, that's what I'm saying. When you did something that really has lasting, impactful energy, it should have a lasting effect on a positive level, but there could be other effects of how it affects you, but that could vary depending on what you're doing. It's another good point too by Antares, Uranus, Callius, potassium. I've heard that before spiritually, which has atomic number 19, which is COVID-19 to destroy, Kali the destroyer. So yes, one could possibly design a ritual with Kali, to banish and remove any connection energy-wise, or use it as a protection type of archetype from that. That's another good way. All right. I got to wrap this up. Let me see if I can squeeze one or two more here. Pedro, I don't want to butcher your name again. Maletashi, been working with Samuel. I dropped my vaping habit. Good for you. Get off of that shit. Anybody have vapes, stop it. It's not good for you. It sucked for the first week, but I feel great now. I'm born again. I'm glad to hear that. That's good. That's good. Good work. If you're trying to destroy something about yourself that needs to be destroyed, that's a good way to break a smoking habit or vaping. That's a good thing. All right, what else we got? All right, Demon of Akuma no Ryoki. I'm not sure if you're from Japan or you just have a Japanese avatar. Can servitors be binded to myself and will for eternity? Not if you control them. If you, first of all, servitors, when you're creating a servitor spirit, first and foremost, if you're one, it depends on what you're creating it for. Can it consume you or can you lose control? Yes, you can. If now for an eternity, I don't know. That would really, you would have to lose a really serious amount of control. But Remember, when you're creating a servitor spirit, you're the God, you're the commander, you're the force, you're the one that's in control and has created. The only way I could see that happening is if one, you underestimated the power of what you created, and two, you at some point in that process, you became not knowledgeable enough to keep it under control. Hold on one second, I got to restart this. And let me finish this up soon. For eternity, I've worked with servitors. I don't know anybody that's had that problem. Again, so I'm not saying it can't happen. Based on what I know, I can't see that happening, other than the fact the individual has completely lost all type of control of what they created, which that shouldn't happen when you're the one that designed, manifested, and gave life and image and likeness to the servitor. So that's the best I could tell you in that area. All right. Annie Otis, this is a good question. What is the association of Samael with the Sanctum Muerte? I am too aggressive with my anger at times, and it's a weakness of mine. I needed to set up a consultation with you soon. It's time. Wow. Okay. Well, you contact me when you're ready. I've always likened, you've heard me say this in past videos, some may or may not. I've always likened Samael to the male aspect of the Holy Death. I've said that several times before. There is a connection because they are Reaper type energy in the sense. Now, when you see the Reaper with the skith, it doesn't always mean they're coming, because, you reap what you sow. A Reaper is removing things. And the skith can also be used to dig up soil. And through soil, things are regenerated and regrown. You understand? So there's two ways you got to look at that. And they're both that type of energy. Now, contrary to what most other people describe with the Holy Death, I hear a lot of this gloom and doom shit. And everybody makes their own connection differently. I've never had that type of connection with the Holy Death. I have more of a very strict, motherly type of energy with the Holy Death. That's how it's always been with me. She's the mother that shows what we call tough love. She's definitely not very meager or timid. She's very aggressive, raw, straight to the point, in your face. And it's always, I liken it to that. And Samael is the same way, and the Holy Death is the same way. She's going to give it to you raw dog McGraw, as they say, right? She ain't going to cut no corners. And that incites a lot of emotions and energy within the initiate. So they're very similar. The only thing that varies is the practices that you would utilize to work with them are a bit different, but very similar in energy and nature is the best way I can describe it. Okay. All right. Looks like we are almost at the end here. I think Edgar's last name is spelled Korveal. I'm almost certain that's it. Edgar Korveal. You get his book on Amazon. I think it's like 10 or 12 bucks. I'd recommend it. All right. All right, Mystic Moons, you got it for the epilepsy. All right. All right, people, I think that's it. I got to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Last thing I just want to say, stay safe, stay smart, stay productive, stay positive, keep moving, stay on your ritualistic work, take care of your health, do things to boost your immune system, keep exercising, stay busy. This stuff will pass. There you go, Pedro. Thank you. All right. Kerval. Appreciate it. Pedro just typed the last name in. I'm sorry. I butchered it. I had OU. I don't know why. All right. So everybody stay positive, stay healthy. And if you need to contact me for anything, you see the email description in the box of the videos there. And we will talk soon. Infernal blessings. All right. All right. I'm going to end it here on Instagram.